The corporate office lobby buzzed with the quiet hum of efficiency, sharp-dressed employees clicking across polished marble floors, glass walls casting reflections of passing figures, and the low murmur of distant phone calls. Everything about the space spoke of professionalism and power, until a tiny disruption walked in, unnoticed at first. Barely tall enough to reach the counter, a 4-year-old girl stepped through the revolving door, her small shoes squeaking against the floor. She wore a pink hoodie that hung a little too big and held a crumpled piece of paper in her tiny fist, a drawing, smudged with crayon fingerprints. Her eyes scanned the room with purpose. No hesitation. Just a quiet determination that didn't fit her age. She marched straight to the front desk and looked up at the receptionist. "I'm here for Mommy's job," she said, her voice soft but clear. Time paused. The receptionist, mid-type, froze. Her eyes darted around, unsure if this was a prank or a mistake. A murmur rippled through the nearby waiting area as staff began to notice the small, serious visitor. A security guard tilted his head, concerned. A young intern, seated nearby, watched the moment unfold and instinctively slipped out his phone to call HR. The little girl stood there calmly, as if what she said made perfect sense. Her hand gripped the drawing tighter, like it was her resume. A few employees stepped closer, drawn by the surreal contrast, this little child standing in the middle of a gleaming lobby, asking for her mother's job like it was a normal Monday morning errand. Nobody knew what to say. Nobody dared laugh. The silence held, waiting for what would come next. The call reached the top floor within minutes. On the executive level, far removed from the hum of the lobby, silence reigned. Frosted glass, mahogany desks, and men and women in power suits filled the space where only decisions lived, not emotions. The CEO, Mr. Alden Roth, known for his calculated demeanor and tight schedule, was reviewing quarterly reports when his assistant cautiously knocked. "There's a little girl in the lobby. Says she's here for her mother's job. HR thought you should know." Alden looked up, confused. He didn't do lobby interruptions. But something in the assistant's hesitant tone made him pause. 2 minutes later, the private elevator chimed open on the ground floor. Heads turned. Whispers spread. The CEO of the company, rarely seen outside boardrooms, stepped into the marble lobby, scanning the crowd. And then he saw her. A small figure in pink, legs barely dangling off the edge of the leather waiting bench. Her head leaned to one side as she stared at her crumpled drawing, as if waiting for someone important. No phone. No guardian. Just wide eyes and innocence seated in a place meant for briefcases and deals. Alden walked over slowly, his polished shoes clicking loudly with each step. "Hello there," he said, kneeling slightly to meet her gaze. "Did you say you're here for your mom's job?" The girl looked up at him, then nodded seriously. "She used to work here. She was happy. But now she cries at home. So I came to help." That moment, raw, unscripted, landed like a stone in Alden's chest. Behind them, the receptionist quietly lowered her phone. The entire lobby watched, hushed. For once, in that cold corporate world, everything stopped. The small conference room on the first floor had never felt so still. Usually reserved for client onboarding or impromptu HR meetings, it now held something far more delicate. The little girl sat in one of the oversized leather chairs, feet not touching the floor, her pink hoodie slightly bunched around her shoulders. The CEO sat across from her, his posture calm but his mind racing. Between them, she carefully unfolded the wrinkled drawing she'd been clutching all along. It was a simple crayon sketch. A smiling stick figure woman at a desk, surrounded by hearts and what looked like computers and people. Above it, in shaky letters, it read, "Mommy at work. Happy." The CEO took it slowly, stunned by how something so innocent could carry so much weight. "She always made breakfast before work," the girl said matter-of-factly, looking at the sketch. And she smiled when she wore her shiny shoes. But now, she just stays home and says she's tired. A silence fell. From the corner, an HR manager nervously glanced at a tablet and whispered, "Sir, we believe her mother was part of the last round of restructuring. Admin team. Let go 3 weeks ago." The CEO blinked. He vaguely remembered the spreadsheet. The line items. No faces attached. "Do you remember your mommy's name?" he asked gently. The girl nodded, her voice soft. "Elena Rivera." And that's when something shifted in the room. A name. A face. A daughter. A forgotten casualty of a bottom-line decision. The CEO leaned back, silent. The child wasn't asking for charity. She wasn't demanding anything. She had simply come, believing that her presence, her drawing, her truth, might be enough to bring back her mother's smile. And in that moment, it was. It was early evening when Elena Rivera opened her apartment door, weary, dressed in a faded work-from-home sweater, her hair loosely tied. She wasn't expecting visitors. On her doorstep stood her daughter, beaming. And beside her, shockingly out of place in this modest apartment complex, stood Alden Roth, the CEO of the company that had quietly let her go. Elena froze, eyes darting from her daughter to the sharply dressed man. I'm sorry, what's going on?" she asked, her voice wary, protective. The little girl ran to her mother, tugging her hand. "Mommy, I gave him the picture. I told him you were sad." Alden stepped forward, holding a sealed envelope. "I came to return something that never should have been taken," he said calmly, offering the letter. Elena opened it with trembling hands, her eyes scanning the content. It wasn't just an apology. It was a formal offer. Her position reinstated. But not just that. A promotion. Better hours. Flexibility to work partially from home, on her terms. Respect, finally. "I don't understand," she whispered, overwhelmed. "Why?" Alden looked down, then back at the girl now hugging her mother's waist. "Because a 4-year-old walked into my lobby and reminded me that numbers have names. That the people we cut, have homes. Children. Hope." Elena's eyes welled with tears. She hadn't begged. Hadn't asked for pity. She had simply tried to survive, silently, with dignity. And now, her silence had been broken, not by her voice, but her child's. The girl looked up with a proud smile. "I told you I'd fix it." For a moment, none of them spoke. The world felt still. And then Elena knelt, hugging her daughter tightly. This wasn't just a job being returned. It was a piece of their life being restored. It was the company's annual Family Day, a rare event where the cold corridors of corporate life softened into laughter, balloons, and scattered cupcake crumbs. Children ran between cubicles. Employees brought spouses, siblings, and stories. At one particular desk, neat, freshly redecorated, Elena Rivera sat, answering a few emails with quiet focus. A small pink hoodie hung from the back of her chair. Just beside her, her daughter spun slowly in the rolling chair, giggling as her sneakers brushed against the carpet. The drawing now framed beside her monitor, "Mommy at Work. Happy," had become more than a child's doodle. It had become legend. An unspoken reminder of what mattered beyond deadlines and profit margins. The CEO passed by, walking with his executive team. He slowed when he saw them. Elena stood up politely, but he shook his head. "No need. You're right where you belong." He turned to the girl, who stopped spinning and flashed a toothy grin. "Hi, Mr. Boss Man." He chuckled. "Still keeping us in line?" She nodded. "I made Mommy happy again." The moment wasn't grand. No speeches. No applause. Just a quiet acknowledgement, that change, sometimes, doesn't come from board meetings, but from a child who dared to walk through glass doors with nothing but heart and crayons. As the CEO walked on, his staff exchanged glances. Something had shifted in the culture. Something warmer. Back at her desk, Elena watched her daughter press buttons on an unplugged keyboard, pretending to do important stuff. For the first time in a long time, she didn't worry about tomorrow. She smiled, the same one her daughter had drawn weeks ago. Only now, it was real. And it was seen.